Hello and welcome to another camera review. My name is Tom Antos and today I'm going to take a look at the Sony A7R II. Also, I want to talk about a very interesting series of filmmaking workshops that is touring right now around the US and Canada. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that at the end of this video. So the Sony A7R II is the latest addition from Sony to their digital full frame single lens mirrorless camera lineup. And what's really cool about this camera is that it has a really high resolution image sensor, which allows you to shoot 42 megapixel photos and also allows you to shoot 4K video. I had a chance to use this camera over the last couple of weeks and I thought I would share my opinion with you guys. So number one question I get asked is that, is this the camera that I should get? Is this the perfect camera? Whether it's for stills or for video. And unfortunately, it's not the perfect camera. I really doubt that there's ever going to be a camera like that. Now that does not mean that this isn't a really good camera that worth taking a look at if you're in the market for a new, whether it's a stills or video camera. It definitely has some amazing features, but also it has some negative things that come with this camera. So the first really cool thing about this camera is the amazing high resolution sensor that it comes with. And like I said before, it delivers 42 megapixel still photos. And to be able to really judge for yourself just how amazing and how detailed and crisp 42 megapixel photos are, it's something that you really just got to try out for yourself. It's just because of the limitations of the video resolution, it's not something that I'll be able to show you guys. But definitely it wowed me the first time I was able to take those photos, and just having that much resolution and still photos and being able to zoom in so much and reframe and crop in on the photos just allows a lot more freedom when in still photography. Another amazing thing is that it shoots 4K resolution video, and this is one of the very few cameras or very few DSLR, DSLM type of cameras that shoots 4K resolution video internally without the need of any external recorders. One of the first cameras that was able to do this was the Panasonic GH4. Now that camera, as great as it is, unfortunately has the micro four thirds image sensor. This camera shoots 4K video, and not only that, but it shoots it at full frame image sensor. So even better, you could say, than like a lot of the cinema style cameras like the Red Epic, for example. So it really lets you use and utilize the full frame lenses. But if you want to, the camera also allows you to crop in and shoots 4K video at the APS-C, or sort of similar to Super 35mm image sensor. It actually records that 4K video to an 8-bit 420 color space. Really though, great quality codec, which is XAVC-S, records at 50 megabits per second or 100 megabits per second. Now that is 4K, but not cinema 4K, but a little bit smaller or narrower, which is the UHD version of 4K. It also records that video to an SD card, so you got to make sure they have a really fast SD card. So it's at least UHSI U3 compatible. And now the camera can also output this video in 422 color space, which unfortunately is still 8-bit, but it gives you a little bit extra of that color space. So if you're using it with like external recorder, like Atomos Shogun, for example, will just give you that a little bit of extra quality, especially when you're in post trying to color grade the footage, which is probably something that a lot of you guys will want to be doing, simply because another one of the great features about this camera is that it shoots in S-Log2, which is the same image profile like the Sony A7S, and that just gives you a flatter looking image, which allows you to capture a lot more information. Now personally, I wish Sony would actually allow 10-bit output in this camera or the Sony A7S or the upcoming even Sony A7S II, but it looks like they're going to stick to 8-bit output only, and the 10-bit is something that they're reserving for their pro video cameras. And that's unfortunate, simply because, like I said, this camera, just like the Sony A7S, captures some, it allows you to do some really amazing things that some of their even pro cinema cameras don't let you do. And also, not only that, but the camera records, like I said, in S-Log. So because of that, having been able to actually output a 10-bit signal and record that on an external recorder, like you can do, for example, with the Panasonic GH4, which is allow that much more flexibility in post-production when color grading the footage. And next great feature that this camera has is the 5-axis image stabilization, which works amazingly both in still photo and in video mode. Basically, the way that works is that it's actually, you could say, a 3-axis within the camera, and then the 2 extra axes is actually happens within the lenses. So you have to have the Sony lenses. Now the stabilization that happens within the lenses is the same sort of that happens with all other DSLR type of cameras. Basically, the lens, one of the lens elements will actually tilt depending on basically the angle of the camera. So that will kind of, you could say, correct for the pitch and the pan of the camera. And now one thing that still does not help is, for example, when you're holding the camera and you're not so much tilting, for example, up and down or panning left and right, but you're just kind of, for example, shaking the camera up and down or left and right. Well, that's where the extra axis of stabilization really comes in handy, because the actual sensor in the camera will kind of adjust and move, whether it's horizontally or vertically, to kind of counter your camera or your hand shaking. And then another thing that it does, which is the 5th axis or the 3rd axis within the camera, is the roll. So, for example, if you're holding the camera but you're, for example, like I said, maybe you're not so much tilting or panning, or maybe even moving up and down, but let's say you're rolling the camera, meaning you're kind of tilting the camera this way, left and right. And then the sensor again within the camera will basically counter that and tilt in the opposite direction. And the results that you can get with this are amazing. Now, to really see just how well the image stabilization works, is you really have to use this camera paired with one of the original Sony lenses that are built for this camera. But even me, I was using this camera mainly with my favorite Nikon lenses, using a little cheap $10 Nikon to NEX adapter. Now, these are old Nikon lenses, fully manual. They don't have any image stabilization within them. So you could technically say I only had 3-axis image stabilization, because the 2 axis that would be normally would be happening within the lens was not happening. So it was only the up and down, left and right kind of motion, and then the roll. But even with that, you can see the difference in the footage, and just kind of just how it minimizes the shake. And so to activate that, though, when you're using lenses that are not native Sony lenses, you'll actually have to go into the menu, and then you basically activate it by, you have to sort of tell the camera what lens it is that you're using, so what focal length it is that you're using, and then based on that, it's going to counter, like I said, the motion. Anyways, great feature, which just simply means that, especially if you're using, like I said, the native Sony lenses, you can basically go with this camera, which it's already really small, but let's say you put in one of those small Sony lenses, and you can go out there and you can shoot really, really high quality 4K video, and also get the footage to look very smooth without any big sort of 3-axis, let's say, camera gimbals or shoulder rigs or anything like that. So you can really look very inconspicuous. You can sneak into a lot of places where people would think that maybe you're just some tourist, amateur, just snapping some photo, when in fact you're actually getting a really high quality video. So definitely I could see that feature being handy for somebody like a guerrilla style documentary filmmaker, or even, for example, somebody who's doing, let's say, wedding videos and stuff like that, where you don't want to have a big camera setup, you still want to kind of blend in within the crowd, but be able to get really good quality smooth shots. Now, if you want to, you can obviously also build up the camera to like a proper cinema setup. I'm using the wooden camera cage, and then it also comes with the rails. The follow focus and matte box are separate things. What's great about this kit is that it's built specifically for the Sony A7 or A7S, A7R, A7R2, and I'm also guessing it's going to work with the A7S II, simply because those cameras are more or less the same size. So the cage fits the cameras perfectly. It allows you easy access here on the bottom for the battery plates. You can see up here. Also, you can access the memory card, all of the buttons, all of that stuff. Yet at the same time, it just makes the camera now a lot more robust. and it allows you, because if you have the rails, it allows you to put them, you know, like a proper cinema matte packs, follow focus, or let's say a remote follow focus if you want. Also comes with this top handle, which, you know, just allows you to carry the whole setup, which once, like I said, once you build it up, and especially once you put like cinema style lenses and all that stuff, maybe let's say attach a monitor, which you can easily do up here, I mean, maybe an Anton Bauer battery. Once you put all that stuff, it definitely the weight of the whole camera package now goes up, so you need a sturdy handle to carry it all. Okay, so the next really cool feature too is the fact that this camera can be powered using the USB connection, which is actually a micro USB, which is up here on the side of the camera. And you know, what's cool about this is that effectively it means that this camera, you can pretty much run it indefinitely just by hooking up one of those portable USB batteries, for example, they, you know, are out there to power or charge your cell phone. Those batteries out there, you know, there's many of them, they're very affordable, and basically provides a really cheap and easy solution to power this camera, which is something that you'll definitely need to do if you plan to use this camera for longer periods of time. Another cool feature, which I already mentioned, is that it shoots in S-Log2. But not only that, but the sort of advantage of this camera over the Sony A7S is that it's now limited to ISO 800 versus in Sony A7S. If you ever had experience with that camera, you'll know that in order to use S-Log and get that, you know, wider dynamic range, you were limited to using ISO 3200 or above, which pretty much meant that you cannot use S-Log, you know, outside in broad daylight, you know, or if you wanted to do that, you would have to really stack up a lot of ND lens filters in front of the lens, and that just usually degrades the quality, but also just makes it, you know, a lot slower to work with the camera. Well, now by using just a simple, you know, variable ND in front of your lens, you can use S-Log2 in broad daylight. Like I said, ISO 800. It's not ideal, but it's way better than being limited to like I said, ISO 3200, which was the case with the Sony A7S. And the last really cool thing about this camera, just something that really surprised me, is the great EVF. I personally haven't heard many people out there talking about it, and you know, and also usually I don't get excited by something like an EVF, but this EVF is truly amazing. At least when shooting in video mode. Like I said, especially when you're recording 4K video, you want to be able to see, you know, all the details, you know, whether your shot is in focus or not. And this EVF, like I said, it just works amazingly. It just shows so much detail, and I was really impressed with it. Now, I did notice some really weird things. That wasn't all the time, but that was only in stills mode when I was shooting still photos. Sometimes it seemed like the EVF would actually downgrade or kind of scale down the resolution, and it would show me kind of a pixelated image for a few seconds, especially when I was trying to do autofocus with it. I don't know whether that's sort of a bug with just this camera that I got, this unit, or whether that's something that's actually with all Sony A7R II cameras. So if you guys notice that, definitely let me know in the comments below. Now, on to the bad things. The first thing I gotta say is just the horrible battery life that this camera has. You know, if you thought that the Sony A7S was pretty bad on batteries, then you're really gonna be disappointed with this camera. It just eats through batteries like crazy, and I'm guessing it has something to do with the fact that it shoots 4K video. So definitely that's something to watch out for. But one of the great things, like I said, about the camera is the fact that you can now power it through the mini USB connection on the side. So that's where, you know, I would say that function comes in really handy, because that, you know, that means that you just simply don't have to rely on those small Sony batteries. Another thing that I wasn't a fan of was the really bad menus, and that, you know, that's not just with this camera but also with the Sony A7S. I just find that Sony really needs to kind of fix up the menus and make it just a lot more easier to navigate through, because sometimes just going through some of the functions, it just, I personally would get lost with it, even though I had, like I said, weeks of experience already of using the camera, and I would still sometimes find myself kind of stop the whole production and kind of go through all the, you know, menus and basically miss one of the features that I wanted to do or was looking for. So definitely not a big fan of the menu, just sort of the structure of it. The next bad thing is the rolling shutter, or just how evident it is, especially in full frame mode. You know, it's one of the worst kind of, I would say, rolling shutter, you know, effects out there. Is it usable for video? Definitely it's usable. You know, for sure if you're using if you have sort of locked off shots on a tripod or something smooth on like a gimbal or Steadicam, you're not going to notice those problems too much. But if you're planning to do any kind of fast panning left and right, or just a lot of really kind of crazy handheld, you know, shaky kind of shots, then this is probably not the camera that you want to go for. You know, again, wish that Sony would kind of fix that problem. I'm guessing it has something to do with the fact that the sensor has such high resolution, so it has a lot of lines of pixels, and that just simply means that the camera has to scan through all of them to capture that video, especially when you're recording in 4K. So if you want to limit or kind of minimize the rolling shutter effect, definitely don't shoot in full frame mode, but in APS-C mode, and that will kind of fix those problems a little bit. And the last sort of the bad thing I want to talk about this camera is the overheating issues. Now, I've heard a lot of complaints from different people with regards to the fact that the camera overheats a lot and just will shut down on you. Personally, I think some of the people were either exaggerating or they just simply, I don't know, they just were in really different kind of shooting scenarios than me, because I myself have, you know, yes, I did notice problems with overheating, but I don't think the problems are that big. It's definitely something, you know, like I said, I wanted to mention. But just to kind of give you an example, when I was shooting, you know, on the streets of New York, broad daylight, you know, really hot day, close to 100 degrees, you know, out, you know, in the sunlight, and I was shooting with this camera, and like I said, I was shooting for the whole day. Never had the camera shut down on me. Now, I'm the kind of guy who shoots very quickly. I don't do live events, so I didn't have the camera obviously running non-stop, let's say for an hour or 2 hours. I would kind of turn it on, set up my shots, you know, get a few angles, and then after 10-15 minutes, turn off the camera, go look for the next shot. So if you're that kind of a shooter, if you're doing more kind of film work, kind of, you know, like I said, kind of postcard kind of shots here and there, I don't think the overheating issue is something you should worry about. But if you if you're thinking of maybe getting this camera for live events, maybe a wedding or, you know, some kind of live conferences, then yes, you do want to be aware of this problem. Now, I'll tell you that this problem is a lot more visible when the LCD is basically in its sort of original closed position. It's something to do, I guess, with the heating or the way that the heat kind of dissipates from the body of the camera. It is the overheating problem is pretty much non-existent the second you lift up the LCD from the camera body. So when I was doing personal tests with this, when I just left the camera running with the LCD down in sort of a hot, you know, around 85 degree kind of room, I had this camera running for around almost 20 minutes, and then the camera would shut down because of overheating issues. But the second I lifted up this LCD, I had this camera running for 45 minutes before it actually shut down on me. So that just shows you that, yeah, you can use this camera, just, you know, basically you want to kind of help cool off the camera as much as you can. And one of the ways you can do it is just by lifting off the LCD from the body of the camera. Another really great kind of a solution to this heating problem is something that I know of people who encountered the overheating issue with the old Sony 5R, NEX 5R camera, which had kind of sort of a similar overheating issue. The same thing, you would kind of want to lift up the LCD, but also some people would put on this really cheap little computer fan that you can power, you know, using a bunch of little batteries, even a portable USB battery, and that's super silent. And with that fan, you can pretty much run these cameras, you know, for forever without them overheating. So that's like a little tip if you're interested in actually using this camera, like I said, for live events for a really long time. So overall, I think this is an amazing camera. So if you're out there sort of considering maybe getting the Sony A7S or this one, you're not sure, I would say go for this one. It really has the Sony A7S beat on every aspect except maybe the low light capabilities. Now, that's not to say that this camera is not good in low light. It's actually the best you know, low light camera out there from all cameras except the Sony A7S. So yes, the Sony A7S still beats this camera when it comes to low light performance, but other than that, this camera addresses all the problems that the Sony A7S had. If you need a camera right now and you're not sure whether to go for this or A7S, I would say this one. If you're okay waiting, you might want to wait and for the first sort of reviews and see sort of results that people are getting with the upcoming Sony A7S II. And now about the filmmaking workshops, which I mentioned at the beginning of this video. For all of you guys who are interested in upgrading your filmmaking skills, you might want to check out the workshop, which is taught by Adam Forgione. He's a very accomplished filmmaker. For all the details, you guys can check out the links in the description of this video. There is also a contest that you can participate in to win a pair of golden tickets to the workshops, as well as a 1-year subscription to the Adobe Creative Cloud. Again, check out the links below or go to my website for all the details. And to finish off, here's a video to show you what you can expect from these workshops.
I've been making films for about 15 years, and now I've taken the most important things I've learned about storytelling, finding emotion, and building my business, and put it all into one workshop series for corporate and commercial filmmakers. I think the thing that I'm most excited about is that now I get to teach those things that I wish other people taught when I was learning my craft. So what's different about this workshop is that not only do we cover the production and the post-production side of storytelling, but we also dive into the pre-production, the planning side, and the business side, which you rarely hear. It's about maintaining and growing business, building confidence in your clients so they trust you, and they spend more money with you the next year. Because the more they spend with you, the bigger their return on investment.
I would like to invite you both to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, to the draft. And
oh my God!
Go behind the scenes.
We're also going to deconstruct a bunch of our films. We're going to look at all the elements it took to make that film, why we told the story the way we did, and also the challenges we had along the way. More than just making films and telling great stories. It's about changing your lifestyle, doing things that help you make more money in less time so that you can free up the time to do the things you really want in life. We all have our own style, but the idea is to come to the workshop and apply those ideas, those gold nuggets that resonate with you so that you can find your own voice as a storyteller.